Hi everyone, thank you for coming. This is such a great turnout. My name is Kira. I'm coming to you from the marketing department at Taylor Brands, and today we're going to talk about how to get your website up and running properly before the new year starts. So whether you already have a website or you're starting from scratch, I think that these are tips that will apply across the board. But before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit about Taylor Brands, just in case you're not familiar with us. We are an AI-powered logo design and branding platform for small and solo businesses, just like yours. So we have 18 million users around the world, I think even more by now. You can create your brand with us in just a few clicks. So whether that's your logo, which I've seen a lot of you have already done, or your website, which is what we're talking about today, we're a completely automated service. You don't need a designer to do any of the things that we offer, although we do offer expert design services if that's something that you're interested in. And actually a lot of the content and a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today, we've sort of figured out our questions that our users have that have been working with our experts. So let's get started. So today we're going to cover what I said before, what your business website needs in order to get you customers. So that includes why a beautiful website is crucial for your business in 2021, what it means to have a successful website, and 3 key ingredients for a website that works, which I call COD, which we'll get to soon. Okay, so what is the deal with websites? I'm sure if you've ever done any research about what a small business needs or why it's important, how it's important to launch, you've probably come across the whole you need a website thing online, and it's definitely something we like to emphasize over at Taylor Brands as well. And we'll just jump into a little bit of why that is. So I don't know if you guys even recognize what's on the screen over here, but maybe you don't even remember using these, but there was once a time where the phone was considered like disruptive technology and sort of changed the way that we do business. And what happened was, businesses started to realize that people were going to this phone directory. That's what this is over here. These are yellow pages. And, they went to look up services and businesses. And so what small business owners did was they started placing ads in the yellow pages. And that was sort of a shift that they had to make in order to stay in front of the conversation. And the same thing happened with the internet, right? Once again, consumer behavior changed and small business owners needed to adapt. And today, it's sort of expected that you're going to have a website. And that's what your customers are looking for. So you don't need to take my word for it. Let's look at a few statistics. So first of all, over 97% of consumers, which is basically everyone, they search online for a local business. They want to find, a local pizzeria, maybe they need a plumber. The first thing they're going to do, even though it's within their town or their city, is go to the internet, go to Google. As well, 30% of consumers won't even consider a business without a website. So think about that. Like, it's not worth saying goodbye to 30% of your potential customers before they even come in contact with you, right? So websites for that purpose are just, that alone is like a really important reason to have a site. And 84% of consumers think that having a website makes a business more credible than those with just social media. This is something we hear a lot, and our experts have sort of had to break the ice for our users in terms of whether or not it's important to have a website on top of social media pages. I can tell you that having a Facebook page is great, having an Instagram page is great, but it's not enough to convince a consumer that you're credible, because anyone can just put up a Facebook page, right? It takes 10 minutes, you put a little bit of information and that's it. But a website tells your audience, tells your customers or your potential customers that you are fairly serious about your business because you invested in the cost of the site. Whether you used a DIY site or you hired an expert, they don't know, but you're showing your audience that you went the extra mile. And I also want to add that during COVID and during, this crazy time, especially when people were staying home, which in a lot of countries people still are, a lot of businesses went online, and customers are sort of relying on you to have that online presence in order for them to research and understand and access your services. Okay, so I think it's really important before we, get into the nitty-gritty of how to build a successful website, just to talk a bit about what it means to be successful. And so the way that I'm defining successful today is it is a website that builds trust with your audience. What does that mean? if people are coming to research your business, they're not going to hang around for a long time if they feel confused, if they feel like they don't understand what you're offering, and your website is really the doorway to your business. And it's really important that they come to your website and they trust you, because if they trust you, they'll do business with you. And another thing to keep in mind is that a good website encourages your audience to take action, because, not everyone is your customer, and that's okay, but whoever your target audience is, they're the ones that you want to try to encourage to keep having a relationship with you. Click the button, subscribe to your newsletter, whatever it is that you're offering. That's what a good website helps you do. So people usually like to take their time online. It doesn't mean that they're always going to say yes immediately to whatever you offer, but it's important to have something that gives them incentive to come back. So how do you do that? How do you build trust? So like Marie Forleo says, a confused mind always says no. So what does that mean? Okay, so let's take a look at these two websites just as an example. Let's say you want to hire a real estate agent, okay? And you come across these two sites. They have the exact same content, the same text is written, everything is the same, but one looks like this and one looks like this. So which one would you take, right? I know for me, if I'm hiring a real estate agent, there's no chance in the world I would go with this website on the left over here, just because I don't know what's going on, right? There's numbers here, there's letters here, a sale, there's like what's new, like I don't know what this means, and frankly, I wouldn't linger to try to figure it out, right? Versus if you see a site like this one, of course you're going to hire them because it's clean, it's easy to understand, you know exactly where to go and how to get in touch with them. So the thing sort of that's important to know from this is that inconsistency is what leads to this confusion, right? You have the weird colors and different font sizes and everything looks messy, and what happens when your audience is confused is that ultimately it will get them to distrust you. And the last thing you want anyone to feel when they do business with you or interact with your business is confusion, because they're not going to do business with someone they mistrust. So right before we jump into some key website ingredients, it's important for you to know and to have in mind that your site needs to be consistent with itself and with what you offer and with your brand. And okay, so this is really, really, really important. You have 7 seconds to gain someone's trust online. It's like I was saying before, right? If you come to that website and you don't know what's going on, you're not going to linger. You're not going to wait around to try to figure out, what they mean by this and how to get in touch with them. You're going to go somewhere else. So those 7 seconds are really, really important. So this is what we're going to keep in mind when we jump into how to create a great website. Okay, so what are the 3 ingredients that we spoke about in the beginning of this webinar for creating a great website? So I think, some of what our design experts have seen when they've been talking to our users is a lot of people think that, if they kind of stuff images into their site and make it super visual and, cram text into one section and everything that they want their audience to know, they put right at the top, and they obsess over page numbers. Should my website be 1 page? Should it be 4 pages? And, they spend so much time thinking about these things that they often neglect the elements that actually help you build trust with your audience. And those elements are the COD, what we said before, which is content, offer, and design. So it's important just not to ignore the real things that will improve your site, just in favor of sort of stressing over, what it is you need. And like we said before, we're trying to, give the tools that we need to launch your site before 2021. And these 3 things don't have to take a lot of time. They don't have to take a lot of anxiety. And so let's see how we can do it. So the first thing on the list of the COD list is content essentials. So I really love this quote that clarity trumps persuasion, because I think a lot of the times when people create their website, their first goal is sort of like, okay, sell, sell, sell. And so they're trying to persuade their audience to do so many things that ultimately, like we saw with the website before, that they just end up getting confused because there's so much to look at, and they're seeing so many different things that you're just like, I don't want to deal with this, right? It's overwhelming. And when you take a look at your content, I think the main thing to focus on is clarity. So we have a few content essentials. A couple of you had actually asked if it's important whether to have a 1-page website as opposed to a multi-page, and when you need both. I think that question, while it's important, it doesn't matter so much. Like if you are someone, let's say you sell like 50 products and, you really need to showcase them, then I think, yeah, you will need some inner pages. But if, again, we're really just trying to focus on launching right now and launch before the new year. And to start with, I think it's totally fine to have a one pager as long as you're including these things on that one page. But again, if you want separate pages for your home and your about me, that's totally fine. But this is what's important to know. Okay, so first of all, you're on your home page, which is also similar to what we saw in the website before. You need your logo. That's really important. A lot of users, when they come to your site, they're going to be looking for your logo. Studies have actually shown that people spend just as much time looking at the logo, if not more, than on the text itself. So your logo is a sign of trust, and like we've been saying, trust is super important, so that has to be there. You also, for your homepage, you really just want right at the top some sort of catchy headline, maybe with a couple lines of description underneath, which you don't need, but a lot of people include that, and a CTA. So what's a CTA? Your CTA is one of the most important parts of your website. A CTA is a call to action. That's what it stands for. It's absolutely crucial. And what it is, it's usually in the form of, those buttons that has a couple words on it that tells your audience to do something, to take some sort of action. So whether that's read more, whether that's sign up now, whether that's shop, your CTA is super important because whatever people are coming for when they get to your website, they need to be directed. And your CTA is exactly the way to direct them to take the action that you want to take. So having an About Me section is also really important just because it helps your audience get to know you a little bit and also understand who it is that they're about to do business with. And again, it helps create the trust that I keep talking about. So in your About Me page, it's really helpful, or section, it's really helpful to have a mission statement, which is sort of this clear one-liner saying, how you give value and to whom. So as an example, I help families create age-appropriate routines, healthy sleeping habits, and that encourages children to learn to sleep independently. I don't know if you're, let's say, like a sleep coach or something. So your mission statement's really important. Just, again, it could be 1 or 2 lines. It doesn't need to be a whole page. And then also include your bio, right? Like, why are you the person that they should do this sort of business with? What's your relevant experience? What are your credentials? You can tell them a bit about your backstory. People really, really connect with stories. And, it's sort of like an easy way to humanize yourself and not just look like a website, but look like a person or a brand behind the website. And it's also, good to mention where your passion comes from, why you care, and lastly, like we said, how it is that you can help them, how you give value to them. And someone actually also asked us, is it relevant to include a bunch of images of yourself all over your website? So I would argue that not all over your site, you don't need to splash your face everywhere, but in your About Me section specifically, a nice headshot, especially a professional headshot, could be great. So I just want to take a look at this example of a homepage. This is actually a site that our in-house experts helped design for one of our users. They're a counseling center, and you'll notice over here there's just a headline that's catchy, that's to the point, and a CTA, right? This contact now is that call to action that we spoke about. Notice that like the logo's visible. It's in the left-hand corner, which is actually, if you're looking for a place to put your logo, that tends to be where people look for it first. And it's just a clear directive. The button is really prominent. Like, it's really easy to tell what you have to do. And you don't need to overwhelm them with text in the beginning of your site. Some users or some website visitors are only going to come here. They're not going to bother to scroll. And that's fine. This is enough for them to either take action or see, what it is that you're about. Okay, so on that note, there are 2 other things that we have to include in content, which is services or a work with me page. If you're a product seller, so of course you need to showcase your products and have, product descriptions and images if you can and things like that. But the main thing, and I think, most people here do provide some sort of service. So the main thing to have is make sure that what you actually offer, your services are up to date. If you offer packages, like different price points, then that's good to include. But the main thing is just to have the name of your service and a line or 2 of description of each one. And it really helps to have testimonials. I'm going to say that testimonials are not a must for launching. Again, like, we're just trying to get your website up and running, but they're a great thing to add. And lastly, contact information is so important, and consistent contact information. So you're going to want to have your primary contact, like share the main way, tell your visitors how they should contact you. Usually this is an email address. I think email is also a lot more comfortable for people than, a phone, but it can also be a form. Just make sure it's very visible on the page. And if you have social media, whether it's just Facebook or Instagram or, multiple accounts, you can include little buttons for your social media profiles. Make it really easy for them to follow you online. Someone might not be ready to buy your product or service now, like we mentioned before. And so maybe they won't email you, but if you give them a way to follow you online, it's an opportunity for you to stay on their radar. So the next time they want to buy a product or service, like they know to come to you. And the last thing, like I said, is testimonials, but again, you don't need to launch with that. I did just want to mention, a few people have asked us how you get visitors to your website, and a main way and an important way to do that is through what's called SEO, which is search engine optimization. Unfortunately, SEO is a huge topic and it's beyond the scope of this webinar, but I did just want to mention it here. If you have questions about SEO or you want to know more, you can always reach out to our experts. I'll let you know in the end of the webinar, how you can get in touch with us. But I did just want to mention it because once your website is launched and you have time to actually go over it and optimize it, that's when SEO will be really helpful. So the next thing you need to launch a good website is to have a clear offer. It's the O in our COD. So, a good offer is something that's easily accessible, like how does your customer get the offer? They fill out a sign up form versus, calling and waiting for 40 minutes, right? Like it has to be something that's easy for them to get and also that's specific. So I think I mentioned this before that, we see some of our users trying to appeal to everyone and like talk to the masses. But, so in one section they'll say, I'll help you lose weight. And in the other section, they'll say, I help, older people live a healthier lifestyle. And, they'll say a lot of great things, but because they're not talking to a specific person with a specific offer, it kind of falls flat. And, it's less easy for users to come to their website and connect with the offer. So what's important to know is not to try to appeal to everyone. The more you can imagine speaking to one person, the easier it'll be for you to clarify your offer. Okay, so to try to help clarify what your offer is, let's just do a little exercise. So start by saying, who are you? Just plain and simple. I'm Anne and I'm a wellness coach. I'm Javier and I'm a real estate agent. Just say who you are and then figure out what your promise is. What is it that your business is promising to your customers? So for Anne, that could be, I promise my customers to lose postpartum weight in a healthy and stress-free way. Try to really boil it down to just a sentence. And then, okay, so that's the promise, but who is the promise for? Who is it that you serve? And I know one of you, or maybe a couple of you, had sent us a question about if you have to sort of have a general website or make it more niche. And I'm going to say it's very important to talk to your niche, and figuring out who you serve is a big part of that. So for example, here you could be serving career-focused women who recently had a baby. And the reason this is important is because, the career-focused person who just had a baby is super different than, the guy who's trying to become a bodybuilder and compete in competitions, right? So you would speak to them differently. That's why this part of the COD system is so important. And then that's when you get to your offer, right? What is it that you're actually using to deliver on your promise? So for Anne, again, that could be an 8-week online course. It could just simply be even a sign-up form, that says, get on a call with us and we'll help you build your business. We'll help you create a training program that's good for you. And finally, you need, like we mentioned before, you really need a way for people to contact you and make sure that that's really prominent, which we mentioned in the context section, but I think it's just important to reiterate that that your contact information and how they can get in touch with you to claim this offer, that needs to be super, super clear. So let's just take a look here. This is the same website that we showed you before that our experts made for one of our users. And you can see right here, like it's super clear. It's a form. There is, a headline, basic headline that just says, let's talk. Don't wait another moment. The time is now. If you're selling products, your offer could just be add to cart, right? That could be, I offer products and this is how to do it. So here you could see it's just a simple form, and the user will click the button "I'm ready" and they'll send in the form, and that's it. So, how do you get people to say yes to your offer? That's sort of what we've been talking about this whole time. It's by building trust. And no matter how good your content is or your offer, it doesn't matter if you can't get your audience to trust you. And the way that this gets done is with design, right? So if you remember, we saw sort of like that ugly website and that nicer website side by side. And even though they offered the exact same thing and the content was the exact same, it was a no-brainer that we were going to go with the nicer one because it looks more trustworthy, right? It looks like a business owner who put time and care into their site, and the other one was just confusing and it didn't matter for us. So on that, let's just go through a few basic design do's and don'ts. The first thing that's really important is to have your logo, which we did mention before, but aside from having your logo prominent on the page, it's important that the colors of the logo and the colors of the rest of your site are in line with each other. And I think also it's people's tendency to try to jam colors and different fonts and different visual elements into their website, but more often than not, it ends up being confusing as opposed to clarifying, right? So I think it's really helpful that you went through your offer and you know exactly who it is you're talking to and how you're talking to them, because every element of design you include in your site should be based on what will speak to that person the best, what will communicate your offer the best. And more often than not, that means one main background image, like we saw on that website earlier, right? One image, one headline, two colors, right? Really simple but clear. Another thing, right, like we mentioned before, people tend to jam images in their site. You don't need that. Make sure all the images you use are relevant either to your offer or to your brand. So that can be, if you're a real estate business, we keep coming back to that example, you don't, and I don't know, if you're trying to appeal to, let's say, business owners who are renting office space, you don't want to have pictures of kids like running around at a party, okay? You really want it to be relevant to what you're offering. And another thing that's super, super important is to have visual hierarchy. What that means is that you want to guide your visitors' eyes to the most important information first. So that would be your headline. It basically just means don't have all of the text on your website different sizes. Size does really matter when it comes to web design. And again, you want to have bigger text on top, smaller text below. And so this way you can try to lead your visitors to read the things that you want to be seen first. Another tip is just to use only one or two fonts, ideally a font that complements your logo, but try not to use more than that, just so this way, again, we don't confuse your visitor and everything looks really good and very clear. And the last thing is that your website should absolutely be mobile responsive. What that means is that the design is made to either fit desktop computers or a mobile phone or tablet, but I think the most important is that it has mobile capabilities, because most of your visitors at this point are going to be looking at your website on the phone, on the fly, maybe on a bus or something, and you really want your website to come across the way that you meant it to. And if you don't have responsive design, any weird sorts of things could happen while it's on mobile. So you can do this with our editor if you've checked out the website editor in your studio. And also all of the sites that our experts design, they do it like this. Whether or not you're using a website builder or, like you're talking to experts like us, just make sure that that's something that they include, mobile responsive. And so I'm going to take us through an analogy here that is really helpful for remembering, when you're thinking about your website design. Websites are like supermarkets in the sense that you come to a supermarket and, you have a lot of different options. You can go down a bunch of different aisles, and depending on what you need, you might pick something different than the guy next to you, right? But everything is super clear. It's marked where everything is. You can go to one aisle for spices and another one for carbs and a third one for wines and liquors and whatever. And your website should be similar, right? You don't know who's coming to your website, what they want to read about you. You don't know if they're going to send you an email first. You don't know if they just want to know your pricing and nothing else. Like, you're not sure in the end of the day. So all of it needs to be easy to navigate. And I think that's really, really important to know, is just not to try to reinvent the wheel with your design. That's not the point. It's not, don't try to be the next big thing and do something really different and funky. Like, what's more important, and I feel like we've stressed this a lot during this webinar, and I'm going to say it again, is just to be super clear and try to get rid of confusion as much as you can. So if you take a look at this website over here, this is actually one that our experts did as well. And you can see it's really clear, like there's not a lot going on, but in a really, really good way. The logo's there, the background image is, maybe even a stock photo, but it sort of shows exactly what this is about. It helps you strategize, delivery management consulting. If you scroll, you can see really clear CTAs, right? The call to action, speak with an expert. Here are the services laid out. Like we said before, it's really important to just have your services clear, the team, and it's just really clear and to the point. And again, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's nothing like innovative specifically about this design, but it gets the job done. And in the end of the day, it gets people to engage with their services and it gets customers. And that's the goal, right? So I just want to sum up a little bit. We spoke about a lot today in this very short period of time. So the point of your website, what makes your website successful, is to create trust, and you do that through the COD method, through your content, offer, and design. The goal of all those three things is to be super clear and super consistent, emphasize the design, like really, really, spend time trying to figure out what would be the clearest for your visitor. And also, like we spoke about before, it's so important for you to just launch your site. Your website is a living, breathing thing. You can always go back and update it. You can always add images, you can change titles, whatever it is, but this is the time to launch, right? Like 2021 is around the corner. You can start the year off with a bang. I know a lot of us had a really rough year this year, and this is a really good way to just reinvent yourself and get your business out there. So however it is, whether you use a website builder or any other way, this is the time to launch your site. We know you probably have a lot of questions. If you need any help with your website, please feel free to reach out to us at experts@taylorbrands.com. We can get on a free consultation call. We have a bunch of in-house experts who are happy to discuss your options with you. And even if there's something else you're interested in learning that we didn't cover in this webinar, feel free to let us know by email, and we'd love to be in touch. Thank you so much for coming. We hope to see you guys at the next webinar.